Hello, my name is Phileas43, the design director from the VentureKraft Adventures project, and I have a quick little development update for you all today. As you can see here, we're from the Mysterious Strangers Homestead from the VentureKraft Adventures reveal trailer, and if you've not seen that trailer yet, be sure to go and give it a watch after you've watched this update video. So in that reveal trailer, we announced the VentureKraft Adventures would be coming to you all this holiday period. Unfortunately, we have not been able to hit that target, and we're very disappointed that we've not been able to. However, we do have some stuff to show you today because we've been working incredibly hard behind the scenes. Our lead developer, ItsGeppy, has been doing some fantastic work, and we could not be happier with the product that he has come out with. So today we're going to show you some example generation from the dungeon that you will be exploring, and also we have some dungeon exploration and gameplay to show off. In terms of release dates for VentureKraft Adventures, we do not want to confirm another release date until we can be sure to hit it. So, stay tuned, watch this space, there'll be plenty more updates coming in 2022, as well as some reveals to do with the VentureKraft Adventures story, which I cannot wait to share with you all. So, let's roll the footage. Okay, let's go ahead and generate a dungeon. As you can see here, the size of the dungeon can change. This is really important. We've just generated one with a size of 6, but as you explore and play the dungeon more often, your dungeon level will increase. This means you will find better loot and will fight harder monsters in the dungeon when the dungeon size increases. Now, you might be wondering, what sort of performance impact will this have on the server? Well, let's prove that it won't have any impact at all. Let's generate a bigger dungeon with a size of 7. And let's view it from a side-on perspective. You can see that the dungeon generates outwards from a focal point and generates out and down, which means at any given time, it only creates the same number of blocks. So we could theoretically create a dungeon however big we want. It will take longer to generate, but it will never have a negative performance impact, meaning your gameplay will always be smooth. Okay, so now let's get on to some gameplay footage of exploring a randomly generated dungeon. So we start here in the focal room and let's head out. Now this footage is quite long, so I'm going to chime in if and when I feel like I need to. These corridors here are quite tight and claustrophobic. Around the focal point of the dungeon, or the gateway as it will be known, the corridors tend to be a lot more tight and claustrophobic. As you explore the dungeon here, as you can find, there will be lots of dead ends. Now, because the dungeon is randomly generated, and each individual tile is put next to each other in different orders, dead ends will not always happen in the same places. There is infinite possibilities when it comes to dungeon generation due to the vast number of tiles we have created. And there are still more to be made now. An important aspect to VentureKraft Adventures is not only entering the dungeon and getting loot, it is also escaping the dungeon at the end. To escape the dungeon, you must return to the gateway square, which is where you originally start. If you are unable to return to the gateway square, then you have lost. If you fail to complete a dungeon, any items you take into the dungeon with you will be lost as well. So you must be strategic and careful when you enter a dungeon based on what items you take in with you and how far into the dungeon you go, because you will need to remember how to return home. Let's continue watching this footage to see if this player manages to return home. Here, the player has encountered a staircase. The player can go down a level in the dungeon. You may be wondering, why would a player choose to go down a level? The deeper into the dungeon and the further down you go, the frequency of loot and monsters increases. Furthermore, you can also encounter boss rooms in the dungeon. Boss rooms are not yet enabled in this preview build, so you will not find any here. However, in order to complete the VentureKraft Adventures story and progress through the game to the fullest, you must defeat all the bosses in the game. So it's important to explore the dungeon to the fullest if you want to progress. These large rooms here, or any rooms that have large openings, are rooms which you will expect to encounter a monster or group of monsters. Down these tight, narrow corridors, you will not typically encounter monsters. In these rooms, you can encounter both monsters and loot. Killing monsters will increase your dungeon level, and loot can be used outside of the dungeon. You can find useful items, tools, and much more. These few tiles here are examples of basic traps. There will be lots of traps spaced throughout the dungeon. Whilst those traps were fairly obvious, many traps in the dungeon will be very inconspicuous, and sometimes events can happen to you, the player, whilst you're in the dungeon that you will not be able to anticipate. These random events will be explained more in a later video. At this point, I think the player is quite lost. He's gone back up a level, and now they are going to try and find their way out. Let's see if they can remember the way. The player here has encountered another staircase. Going up this staircase will leave the player on the first level, this is the level in which they started. The player's having really bad luck here. Around this corner you can see the player has found bedrock. The entrance to the next tile was blocked off. When you find bedrock in a dungeon, that means you are at the outermost wall of the dungeon. Here is another cut piece of bedrock, so you can begin to orientate yourself if you encounter bedrock. Here the player had given up. They were unable to find their way out of the dungeon and they had lost. So here you can begin to understand how vitally important it is to keep track of where you have been and also how to get back out again. Because you can get as much loot as you like, but if you cannot escape with it, you are doomed to fail. Thank you for checking out this VentureKraft Adventures development update. We are so incredibly excited about this project and we can't wait for you to be able to play it as well. We do have a lot more work ahead of us in both gameplay development and narrative. However, we think the future is really quite bright for VentureKraft Adventures. So, we thank you for watching this video. Please share it with people who you think might be interested with it, and subscribe to the VentureKraft YouTube channel and join our Discord, links below, to get all the most important information about VentureKraft Adventures. Thank you, and have a very good holiday period.